Welcome to Journey to Queendom, the sacred space where survival ends and sovereignty begins. I'm your host, Marci J. Duncan, and this is where we lay down the cape of overachievement, code switching, and self doubt, and we pick up the crown of softness, wholeness, and authenticity. And now, part two. This was a mistake that I made, and I needed to take responsibility for it, and I needed to fix it. And the way that I thought that I was going to fix it is I'm going to prove to everybody that I'm going to be all right. I'm going to prove to everybody who is judging me and thinking I ruined my life, I'm going to prove to them that I'm going to still pursue my dreams. I'm going to make it. I'm going to do everything I said I was going to do, even with this child. And that became my mission. That became my oath. So as you see, I doubled down on that survival mode ethic. I doubled down and I said to myself, I won't be a statistic. I won't be this single mom on food stamps, begging people for money and having 5 and 6 babies out of wedlock and 5 different baby daddies and blah, 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 blah. Right? I won't be this statistics. I won't be a statistic. So once I found out that I was pregnant, immediately in my mind, I said, okay, I got to double down. I got to make this work. So I applied to grad school. I said, I gotta take care of this child, and I gotta make sure that I'm an expert in my field so that I can bring him along and show him how it's done, right? So I applied to grad school. I got accepted into grad school, and I took my boy with me to grad school. By the time I started grad school, he was almost 1. So I went the summer before, and I started the summer before in grad school. The application process was grueling. The particular program that I went to, at that time, they were trying to diversify the program, and they were picking students from all different nationalities. And they had already accepted another Black girl. So technically, they didn't need me because they already had a Black girl. But they accepted me, and I was the extra Black girl, right? So I very much felt that when I was going in. I very much felt that I had something to prove. I very much went in feeling that I had a chip on my shoulder, and I was going to show them that I deserved to be here, right? You hear the theme. You hear the theme that's running through my life at this point. So I had something to prove back home, and I had something to prove in school, right? Showed up. I went a summer early just so that I could get a head start and I could find a housing for me and my son, and I could find him a daycare and get all situated, get the house situated for him to come, and everything would be all right. So I did that. I found a place, and I secured the daycare. Everything was ready for him to come. Went back home right before school started to pick him up. And everybody back home was like, Marci, you don't have to take him. You can leave him. You can go and finish your degree, and then you can pick up, where you left off. You can visit, you can see him as much as you want. You don't need to take him up there. And of course I was like, no, because at this time, that baby, my son, was an extension of me. And just like I felt for myself, I felt for him. And I'm like, no, I have to protect him at all costs. I'm going to do what I said I was going to do. This is my baby, and I'm going to make it work, right? Same thing, me and his father. He's like, hey, you don't need to take him up there, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, no, I'm doubling down. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to show you. I'm going to show them. I'm going to make this work. So I did. I took him. We got situated in school, and got him into daycare, and we got on our routine, right? It was so good that my first semester, I didn't have any assignments outside of my regular classes. So I could come home right after school. It was just like I was working a full-time job. So I would go to school, take take Jamari. That's my first son is Jamari. Take Jamari to school, to daycare. I would go to class, pick him up after class. We would eat dinner together, do the nighttime routine. Everything was gravy. Everything was gravy. The only thing was that second semester. That second semester, I had a assignment, which I was cast in a show because I was going for my master's in performance. I wanted to be an actor. That was my dream. That is my dream. That's what I do. So that second semester, I got cast, and that's when it started to really blow up. First of all, my professors and my teachers, they didn't know I had a child, right? I was not going to be the one bringing the child to school, bringing the child to class. My son was not going to be a reason why I couldn't complete my work, that I couldn't show up in excellence. So they didn't even know I had a child, okay? But the second semester, I was cast in a show and it started getting real. Why? Because my classes were intense. I had rehearsal in the evenings from about 7 to 10. And that meant I barely ever saw my son, right? I barely ever saw him. But I was so invested in the fact that I'm going to do what I got to do. I got to make this work. It's my mistake and I'm going to make it good. I'm going to show them that I can do it. So I put myself through so much pressure operating from that line of thinking. I did not ask for help. I did not send my son home. I did not tell anybody what I was going through. I didn't let on. I muscled through. I muscled through. I put that cape on, that Superwoman black girl cape, and I was determined to be the best. I was determined to do it. I was determined to show that this was not a mistake, that I was the one to make it right. Okay? That was my motivation. And I did. I fought, I clawed. You know, the professors didn't like my work. They were giving me a hard time. One professor in particular was always riding my back. And I felt like the scum of the earth and like I couldn't do it, but I refused to give up. I refused to give up. So I would be crying every single night after my baby was in bed. I would be praying every single night. I remember my mom would send me scriptures to encourage me, you know, so that I would keep going because I was determined not to quit. I wanted to, but I was determined not to. And I remember memorizing, God has not given me a spirit of fear, but a spirit of love, power, and a strong mind. And then I memorized, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I would say these scriptures every single day to encourage me to keep going. And I did. I crawled through, I struggled through, I clawed through until the end. And it got really bad because I was at the point where now I had to take my comps, my qualifying exams, and I had to write my thesis. And it was beginning to be very difficult. And the reason why it was difficult, because I also was doing my senior project, which is my senior performance. So I had to do my senior performance, write my thesis, and take care of this child. And let me just paint the picture of the day that I was having, my everyday in my last semester. I wake up, take my son to daycare, go to class, get done with class around 5 o'clock, go pick my son up from daycare. We eat together for about 20 minutes. And then I would take my son to the babysitter. And then I would go to evening rehearsals from 7 to 10 or 11. Then I would go and pick him up from the babysitter, take him home, tuck him in, wake up, do the whole thing again. That was my day. And it was getting rough. it was getting rough. And the part of it that was getting rough, because I didn't mind beating myself up to get through. The part that was getting rough to me is that I was not even seeing my son. I wasn't spending any time with him. I wasn't spending any quality time with him, and I missed him, and I felt guilty for not being there for him. And looking in his eyes, I just was consumed with guilt and depression and worry, so much so that my performance was failing because of this stress of not being there for my son, and how much I was punishing myself for not being a good mom at this time. So I had to call my mom. I had to make that phone call. And it was one day after a rehearsal. Um, my babysitter came and picked me up from rehearsal, and she had Jamari in the back seat. And she was like, "What's going on?" And she knew something was wrong. And I just broke down. I broke down and started crying and heaving and crying. Thank God my baby was asleep in the back in the car seat. And I just began to tell her, I am suffering. I can't focus in my rehearsals. I can't keep it together. I feel like I'm going to fail. I'm going to mess this up. And on top of it, I just miss my son. I'm not spending enough time with him. And I remember her saying, her name was Penny. And I remember her saying, "Call your mom." And when she said that, I knew she was right. I knew she was right. I didn't want to do it because to me, that was admitting that I couldn't do it on my own. To me, that was admitting that this was a mistake. He was a mistake. I made a mistake. And I couldn't take care of it like I thought I could. So it was very hard for me to call. But I did. Sitting there in that passenger seat, I called my mom and I told her what was going on. And she said, "I was waiting on you to call." And that really touched me. You know, my mom and I are a lot alike. And she basically took the stance, I'm not going to push. I'm not going to pry. I'm not going to put myself in this situation. She can figure it out. But if she reaches out to me, I'll be there. And she was. That very next weekend, she came with my sisters. Um, and they all came and, put their arms around me and encouraged me and, let me know that I had not failed, that they were so proud of me and they're going to take good care of him. And, it's going to be all right. And I'm telling y'all, as you hear, that was the hardest day. That was one of the hardest days, seeing that car drive off with my boy inside of that car. That was so difficult for me. But also, what happened when I went back in the house and I sat in front of the computer to work on my thesis, I felt so light that I could actually focus without feeling guilty because I knew he was taken care of. He was with my mom and my sisters and his dad, and I knew he would be safe. And y'all would think that after that, I learned to ask for help more. But honey, I did not. I surely did not, right? But this moment in time, to me, it was like a rare moment that I would need help in my life. And if I needed help, I knew that I could call on my family, right? I knew that I could call on my family. So that's what I got from this, from this situation. So after grad school, of course, my single momness, me and my son, after I graduated, I moved to Orlando with him and we set up shop in Orlando. where I was taking some film acting classes and auditioning and teaching and doing a bunch of stuff to keep a roof over our head and food on our plates. And it was hard. It was hard because again, it was just me and him, and I had to make it do what it do, and it was rough. It was rough, but this is where I earned my second badge for my Superwoman cape. I earned a second badge. Me and him holding it down in Orlando. It was some dark days. It was some, I don't know how I'm going to pay rent this month. I don't know what we're going to do. Maybe I'm going to have to go to a shelter. I don't know, but I have no idea. But I trusted God, and I worked hard, and I did whatever I had to do to make sure that we were taken care of. And that's what I did. And so, as you can imagine, that this Superwoman cape started to benefit me. It was rendering benefits to me personally, right? And accolades from other people, right? Because here I am with this child. I took him to grad school with me, and I finished and I got my master's, right? I took him to Orlando with me by myself, didn't know a lot of people except for the acting studio that I was studying at, those people. And we were there, just me and him, living, making it do what it do, And I was proud of myself. I was proud of myself. And I felt that working like this and operating out of this type of hustle, get it done, grind it out, it was benefiting me. It was rendering me benefits like, mother of the freaking year, single mother of the freaking year. Statistic who? Statistic what? I'm not on public assistance. I'm not receiving public aid and all of this kind of stuff. I'm making it do what it do. I'm grinding it out because I need to show my son that it is possible, that even if you make a mistake and you have a difficult road ahead of you, you can absolutely pursue your dreams. And that's what I was determined to do. And I was doing it, right? So this survival mode was benefiting me, benefiting my identity, benefiting my confidence. And I never forget one day in class in the acting studio that I was studying in, because now I was going from theater to film to television and commercial. So this was a kind of a new discipline that I was learning. And in class, my teacher said to me, she said, "Marci, who takes care of you?" And I was like, "What? I take care of myself." She's like, "I know you take care of yourself, but I mean, in the way that you care for your son, in the way that you care for all of the people around you." She was telling me, "You were one of the best teacher's assistants that I've ever had. And the way that you take care of this studio, the way that you take care of your classmates, it's extraordinary. But who's doing that for you?" And y'all, that hit me like a ton of bricks because I couldn't answer her. I could not answer her. And she challenged me to do something about that. And of course, at that time, I had no idea how I was going to do anything about that. I really didn't. I wasn't really dating anybody. It was just, I didn't have time. It was me, my son, and my art, right? And that took up most of my life. And I was doing well. I was booking films, I was booking televisions, I was living my dream. And I was on target to getting my credentials so that I can just move to California, me and my son, and pursue my dream. And I got a phone call one day, and it was from my alma mater, Florida A&M University. Yep, go Rattlers. And my mentor from undergrad asked me to come back and apply to teach acting at the university. And she said to me, "I know that you want to move to California. I know that that is your dream." And she said, "But if you could just give us 2 years, just give us 2 years, and and you can go and pursue your dreams. Of course, so I prayed about it and I thought about it, and I really respected my mentor. She was goals for me. She was the ultimate boss babe chick, okay? She was in charge, and I loved her. I loved her. I idolized her. So I said yes, and I moved back home to Tallahassee. And of course, this opened up a lot of things. I had way more help because his dad was there, my mom was there. I was able to save money because I moved back home, and I was able to really breathe, right? From all of the hustling that I was doing, I was really able to breathe for the first time. But little did I know that hustle, that survival mode was still in me, right? It didn't go anywhere. And because I had spent so much time contributing to it in grad school and in my life in Orlando, it was still first and foremost in every decision that I made, right? So when I started teaching at FAMU, I was determined to be the best, to create this program so that it is a great acting program, to give these students the very best that I had. Because when I studied in Orlando, I studied under a woman who gave me everything she had. And I was like, oh my God, that's the kind of professor, that's the kind of teacher I want to be. And so I went in. Do you understand me? I was at that theater all day and night. Every time they asked me to do something, I was doing it. I was directing, I was acting. I was also teaching my own acting classes at night on the side for my own business, Artist at Play. I mean, I was doing it because I was thinking in my mind, because I'm not out there auditioning and acting, I need to make sure that I'm still doing, being creative here on the university campus. So I doubled down on directing, and I was still going to Orlando back and forth to audition when a big role came up. And if I would book something, I would just go, take off, do a sabbatical, go and book that thing, and come back and teach. So as you can imagine, that hustle started to re-engage, right? I started to get a breath of fresh air, but very soon after, I was like, I'm back. For some reason, that rest and that breath of fresh air did not feel right. I needed to go and be productive. I needed to achieve. I needed to climb that ladder. I needed to show my son what pursuing your dreams look like. And so that's what I did. That's what I did. And I was in full on hustle mode, right? Running here and there, doing everything. And what I really started to realize is I started to develop and to identify this persona of confidence, independence, strength, and even a version of masculinity, right? Because it was very much survive, protect yourself. Don't let anybody take advantage of you. Be the first, be the best, right? It was very much turning into a sort of, I don't need femininity, because it doesn't serve me. It's weak. I need to take on the traits of masculinity because I need to be strong. I need to beat them at their own game. And now I'm starting to date. And now I'm seeing things like women being taken advantage of, right? These men are playing games and they're running games on these women. And I'm like, I'm not going to be like them. I refuse to be like them. So then I started to take on the persona of the man in the relationship, where I was like, I'm going to get everything I can get from you without giving you anything, right? I started playing games. I started looking at relationships like this big game you play, and I had to win. I had to be on top. I had to be the one running game on them. This was what I was doing. This is what I was doing. And I had no idea what I was doing to myself. I had no idea. And it was leading into all of these different types of things. So first it was hustling. Well, first it was survival mode. Then it was hustling. And then it was adapting the traits of masculinity. And then it was developing this whole persona of strength and confidence and independence. I don't need help. I'm self-motivated. I can get the job done. I can solve the problem. And then it became cutting people off at the first sign of betrayal. If you betrayed me or if you made a mistake, boom, cut. You are out of my life. And it was anybody. Friends, men that I was dating, that was that, right? If I saw deception, even though I was dishing deception down, right? If I saw deception at any cost, at any level, I was cutting you off because it made me so mad, y'all. It made me so mad that men would be celebrated for having 5 and 6 women. And yet women are considered less than if they have more than one guy on rotation. So it was like a protest. It was like a silent protest this mission that I was on to be equal with the man, to be equal with the man. Now, these things just started to come up in me, y'all. They started to come up in me. I had no idea why. I had no idea the source. I had no idea that it was just snowballing year after year after year after year, right? And then I met my husband. And I was deep in playing games, really deep in playing games. So I was forced to really look for the first time in what I was doing, because he challenged me after we had been dating for a while, and I was still playing these games, and he just straight up confronted me. He was like, "Hey, I'm trying to be with you. Now, if you're still playing games, you can do that, but I'm not going to be here playing no games with you. Now, if you want to be with me, let's do it. But if you're still going to be playing games, you can go do that, and I'll go ahead and do what I'm going to do." And for the first time, y'all, it mattered to me if that man walked away. It mattered to me. So then I said, okay, I got to stop. I got to stop playing games, and I'm going to try to make this relationship work. And Lord, I didn't realize how difficult that would be. I mean, because my mentality in dating was, I get them before they get me. I won't be the stupid girl who gets taken advantage of. I will not be vulnerable. I will not show them who I really am, right? Because they're just going to take advantage of me. I have to protect myself. And so, as you would guess, I took that. I was still wearing that cloak when I entered this relationship with my soon-to-be husband. And so there was a lot of contention. There was a lot of friction. There was a lot of things that I was just like, what is going on? Why am I having such a hard time? What are these emotions? What are these feelings? What is happening to me? Right? Because here I have this mirror of a man showing me who I really am, what I really look like, to a person that is authentic, to a person that is kind, to a person that is genuine, to a person that is wanting me for real. And so he's showing me my reflection, and it looked atrocious. It looked atrocious. But guys, I had no idea how to fix it. I had no idea how to deal with it. And that is when I started to engage in therapy. I started to engage in therapy sometime after that, not immediately. Some things happened in my life. I lost my sister, and that incident really took me to be serious about clearing up some things in my life, because what I did know is that I loved this man and I wanted to be with him for the rest of my life. I knew that he was a good man. I just was not sure that I knew how to love him. And I wanted to. And because I wanted to, I knew some things had to change. So I started therapy very seriously. And in that therapy, I started to understand what was contributing to this behavior. What was contributing to this behavior? And it was, first and foremost, my connection with religion. And I do mean religion, because religion was teaching me that I am to be pure and I am to be chaste and I am to stay away from all of these sinful things. And if these things are sinful and I partake in them, then that means that I am dirty. I am unclean. And I internalize that, right? So that was coming up for me, which was also suppressing my ability to open myself, right? To really let myself feel authentically, because I was so busy feeling less than, punishing myself, feeling guilty about the decisions and the choices that I made. Of course, another thing that came up was the fact that I was a very curvy girl. And I always was a curvy girl, even when I was little. My dad nicknamed me Brick House. How inappropriate is that? And if you don't know that term, Brick House, go Google the song Brick House, and you'll understand. So from a child, I was always noticed because of the way that I looked, my body. And so that meant that men and boys were always looking at me with that look. And you know what that look is. And so as a little kid, I certainly did not know how to internalize that. I didn't know what to do with that. And of course, those looks became inappropriate things being said to me, right? As a little girl and growing up. And then that became inappropriate behavior towards me from boys and men. And it just snowballed to the point where I couldn't necessarily determine what if what I was doing was bad, or if what they were doing was bad, or because I allowed it, it was bad. I couldn't understand it. First, I didn't have any refusal skills, so I didn't know how to say no. Second, I would just do the best I could to deal with what was happening, which was disassociate, right? I didn't know at the time that that's what I was doing, but that's what I learned. And it would almost be like I was standing outside of myself, looking at myself, right? Just stuck in my body, not knowing how to get out of this situation. And so I just bear down, get through it, and disassociate. Or I pretend, right? Pretend to be engaged, pretend to be happy, or pretend to enjoy myself, because that's what I saw on TV. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what it's supposed to be, right? Again, all of these things, trying to understand these things from a young age, started to be distorted in my brain and added to my survival mode, right? The other thing was my dad. You know, he wasn't really there. I never really remember him being in our household, right? It was just basically my mom. And so he would come in and out, and I would see him in and out, and he would just disappoint me so much, because I just felt, you know, I never saw him and I wanted to see him, and he would promise and then he wouldn't do what he promised. And I remember one time he was an alcoholic at that time, and he had gotten so drunk that him and his brother started to fight. And I remember being a young girl, just being so scared, but again, being stuck in my body because I couldn't go anywhere. I was so afraid, and just seeing two grown men go at it was so frightening for me. And so one of the things I started to learn was that anger is bad. If you allow yourself to be angry, you're going to be out of control. And so I would not allow myself to express anger. I would push and push and push and push and push down my real feelings so that I would not express that anger, because I was afraid that if I allowed myself to be angry, I would lose control and then bad things would happen. Right? So you see these things starting to contribute. Other things that contributed was that I would perform, I would pretend, I would please, I would start pleasing people, right? I would listen and observe other people to see what I thought that they wanted, and that's what I would give them, right? If I asked them, what do you think about this? And they were disapproving, I wouldn't do that thing, right? It became about making the other person happy. It became about making my decisions palatable to everybody, right? Not really honing in on the things that I want, the things that I need. It was about what other people thought I needed, what other people thought would be good for me, because I did not trust that I would make the right decision. I didn't trust that I would do well, that I would do the right thing. So I oftentimes would just flow with the people around me. If the people around me went right, I would go right. If the people around me would go left, I would go left. But it was very interesting. I wasn't a pushover, right? I was very much independent and strong-willed. But when it came to making a decision, I did not trust myself. So I would end up erring on the side of doing the thing that most people thought I should do. Right? And that was the only way that I could control the circumstance or the situation. Because of course, if I was in discord with them, then that's conflict and I feel out of control and it sends me into a fear. Right? And then my body starts saying, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Just make them happy. Then you won't be afraid anymore. And so this started to really snowball and snowball and snowball. And I became this person that was always performing, that was always pretending, that was always pleasing other people. And every now and then I would get what I wanted. Every now and then I would speak up for myself and do what I wanted. Every now and then I would allow that anger to be manifested and say what it is I really wanted, but not often, right? And so my body started to keep score. And what does that mean? All of the ways in which I was operating out of survival mode, out of lack, out of fight or flight, out of extreme immediate need. All of that time from my youth to grad school, to being on my own, to being back in Tallahassee, to being now married to my husband, it has snowballed so that it had started to manifest in my body. My body had kept score of all of those things, had kept a list, a tab. Now, I did not know that. I did not know that until I got more and more involved in my therapy over the years, right? More and more involved. And at this point, I have been in therapy several years. And I'm starting to explore and understand how my body kept the score. First and foremost, I had fibroids. Let me tell you what fibroids are. Non-cancerous growths that develop in or on the uterus, typically made of muscle and connective tissue. They are very common with women experiencing them during their reproductive years. So fibroids are growths that contain human tissue. Some are filled with teeth, some are filled with hair, some are filled with bone. So you see, there are fibroids, there are masses that are filled with things that humans have, but they're not humans, right? Keep that in mind. The second thing, I was diagnosed with endometriosis. Endometriosis is this. It's a disease in which the tissue similar to the lining of the uterus grows outside the uterus. So this lining is supposed to grow on the inside of the uterus, but in endometriosis, it grows outside of the uterus. The uterus is a reproductive organ, right? You're seeing the connection here. Fibroids, they grow outside the uterus, the reproductive organ. So the endometriosis diagnosis, it can cause severe pain in the pelvis and make it harder to get pregnant. Okay, so now we have the fibroids, which are extra tissues that contain elements of humans, but are not humans. So in a sense, they contain the tissue that creates babies that humans have when they're in utero, but the fibroid itself is not a human. Endometriosis causes my lining to grow on the outside, which makes it hard for me to reproduce. The last thing, I was diagnosed with follicular lymphoma. Now, follicular lymphoma is a non-Hodgkin's blood cancer, and it's a slow growing, low-grade disease. And what happens is this lymphoma develops when the white blood cells called lymph nodes grow out of control. That means I have an overproduction of lymph nodes. I have them all over my body. So they move around my body and in my blood and in my lymphatic system. And we know that the lymphatic system is an important part of your immune system. And what happens is when you start to get sick or when you have a virus of some sort, lymph nodes are produced and they migrate to the area that is infected to help you heal, to help you extract the disease or the sickness. In my body, I have an overproduction of lymph nodes, which makes me see the connection between all of these body ailments. My body constantly was thinking something is wrong, producing more lymph nodes than necessary because they're unable to find the issue. I'm also having fibroids and overproduction of fibroids, which are basically tissues that contain human qualities but are not human. Endometriosis is the lining growing outside of the uterus, which causes me not to be able to be fertile. Do you see the common denominator in all of these things? Reproduction. The area in which that I create in my life is creating pieces of art, plays and movies and all of these things, creating art, right? My body is taking score of all of these things that are happening to me, and my body wants to produce, but it is stopping itself. It wants to be fruitful. It wants to multiply. But my body is not allowing that to happen, being that my uterus is not cooperating because the lining is growing on the outside. And the lymph node, the lymphatic system is saying, you're in danger. You have an illness. I need to heal you. So I have an overproduction of these lymph nodes throughout my body and my blood. Friends, the body keeps the score. This blew my mind. How hard my body was fighting to protect me and keep me in survival mode, because the survival mode was how my body protected me. Friends, as you can probably guess, that survival mode was literally killing me. Literally. And when I came to the point of this awareness, I knew that I had to connect the dots. I had to go and open those doors that have been closed for so long and deal with all of these things that are keeping me from claiming my crown as queen and not a superwoman. That is not what I was created to be. Saving the world, fixing everybody else's problems at the expense of my own life. That is not what I was created to do. That is not what you were created to do. Black women were given that title. We're given that badge on our capes. And we took that badge and we said, yes, we will do it, because it gave us confidence. It gave us purpose. It gave us applause and appreciation of how much we could hold on our shoulders. Friends, no more. Put down that cape and pick up your crown. And we will get into how to pick up that crown in our next couple of episodes. Listen, thank you guys for listening today. I hope that this episode was helpful for you in some way. I want you to join me in our next episode where we will start to uncover how to pick up our crown. And we will be talking about authenticity. So join me in our next conversation. Let's continue to choose, guys. Let's continue to choose to put down the cape and pick up our crown. So the next time that I see you, here's what I want you to do. I want you to say this with me. God is with me. I am safe. I am secure. Say that every day this week. Every day when you wake up, say it. God is with me. I am safe. I am secure. And then I want you to do this with me. I want you to reflect on this throughout the week in your journal. If you don't have a journal, just grab one, right? I want you to grab one and I want you to journal about this week. Where am I still hustling instead of living? I want you to also make a list of everything you are angry about. Make a list. You don't have to finish it in one sitting. If you think of things in the next day, continue that list. So the two things I want you to do this week is affirm yourself every day, every morning, and every evening. And then I want you to spend some time journaling. First, about the ways in which you are surviving, the ways in which you are hustling instead of living, and also the list of the things that make you angry. And that's where we'll start next week. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you next time. Remember, put down that cape and pick up your crown. Thank you for walking this stretch of the journey with me. If something in today's episode stirred your spirit, share this episode with a sister. Leave a review or connect with me on social media. Remember, your softness is sacred. Your healing is your birthright. And your queendom, it's already within you. Until next time, keep rising and claim your inheritance. This podcast was brought to you by Artists at Play, nurturing the artist within.